Welcome to HowlingHusko Gaming. Today I'm going to be giving you my thoughts on Bloober Team's latest game and the first of the Xbox Series X and S exclusives, The Medium. The Medium is their largest project yet, and you can see the love that they have for this genre. This developer is heavily rooted in the psychological horror genre. Past projects include Blair Witch, Observer, and Layers of Fear, all of which have carved out a fan base for this developer. I will keep this as spoiler free as possible, and specifics will be kept to the first hour's gameplay. The Medium is set in the late 90s in Poland. The protagonist, Marianne, is the title medium and she knows it. Seeing the spirits of dead people is no shock to her, but she still feels emotional pain when seeing them. She has a gloomy outlook on life, but she still helps the spirits move on. This is shown in the first 15 minutes of gameplay. She appears to be a caring person that has been dealt a bad hand in life, but does what she can. The story is narrated from Marianne's point of view as though she's telling someone the events of a story, and the voices of her inner thoughts are throughout the game. The story starts with Marianne returning home to prepare for her father's funeral, when she receives a call to go to a workers' holiday resort called Neva. The caller's identity is a mystery, but appears to know who Marianne is. This is the beginning of her journey, and the strange events that are to come. This is a story experience with small elements of stealth and limited defense gameplay. Solving puzzles is also a big part, but they aren't that hard. The horror in this game comes more from the actions of men than the horrible creatures in the soul world. Though never actually said or shown, child abuse is heavily implied. Memory fragments play back events that happen and can be quite unnerving, and this comes from the great cast and their ability to get into their roles. The voice acting is great. Never felt like anyone was phoning it in, which in these days of the pandemic lockdowns, they might have done over Zoom or Skype. Kelly Burke voices Marianne and does a great job. She delivers a solid character with an obvious psychological wounds, but still is a good and caring person. Troy Baker as always is excellent and comes across as the very twisted antagonist Moore. Later in the game I could hear one of the characters doing his best Heath Ledger Joker impression, and it worked for the scene that was unfolding. The actual gameplay has a high level of retro love in it. Sold as the first of the Xbox's next generation exclusives, its mechanics hail back to the late 90s, with clunky walking and camera angles that make you want to throw your controller through the closest wall you can find. Yet in this it brings a level of nostalgia that, as a fan of the original Resident Evil games, gave me a feeling of joy and anger all at the same time. A new mechanic is the dual reality gameplay. The character psychically slips between the real world and the soul world to perform tasks. Both realities are shown, and what you do in one is shown in both. Sometimes this is to complete tasks that can't be done in one world. Other times it's for the storytelling. You spend about a third of your game in this dual world mode, and sometimes it can be annoying. The cast of characters feel real, and for the little that you meet of some of them, you can feel sympathy for them, or disgust depending on the path of the story. You meet the soul of a young girl very early on called Sadness, but she has a really playful air to her, but is a little lonely soul that just wants a friend. Marianne and Sadness' interactions are great. Marianne is apprehensive at first to see the soul of a dead girl, but I felt later on that Marianne cared about this little dead girl, and I look forward to seeing the two together again. For the most part, the Medium delivers a solid experience with only minor bugs. Only once did I get stuck on an environmental object and have to reload. Occasionally the screen would show weird purple-pink lights, but loading a previous save solved this. I noticed these bugs later on towards the end of the game, not so much at the beginning, but there was nothing game-breaking. I played the Medium on the Xbox Series X on a 1080p monitor for recording purposes. I wondered sometimes if it was struggling. For the most part the game is beautifully crafted and the Unreal Engine looked great. It's when the split screen of the dual worlds system kicks in that I started to notice that the Series X was not looking as crystal clear as it was before. The adaptive resolution controls that have become commonplace look fuzzy when moving. I wonder if Microsoft needs to work more closely with external developers. Gears of War is running on the Unreal Engine and Gears 5 looks amazing. Being on the Series X I couldn't check my frame rate, but would notice dips in performance. textures would sometimes take a long time to load in, and I got that lovely Cyberpunk 2077 blur effect for about 5 seconds. No loading screens though past the first boot up from the menu, except when dying and reloading a checkpoint. You gotta love those new NVMe drives. After a while I switched my brain off and just went with the experience. Yes, it could be better, but for what the game is, I was okay with the graphical issues. This game can take anything from 5 hours, smashing through the story, ignoring the collectibles, to 8 hours of completionist fun with all the collectibles and achievements. It's not long, and in this time of massive sandbox and RPG games, sometimes you need a good short story to get your teeth into, especially for those gamers out there like myself that have lots of real world commitments and no time to invest in a second job. Talking to you, Assassin's Creed. That being said, it took me a while to get into it though. Felt like it took 2 hours before I thought, I want to know what's going on and see how this ends. But once I got past this I felt invested and the story started to open up. I don't think I'd play through it again though, or go back for any achievements I missed the first time around. Once you've experienced the story and its twists and turns, it loses its mystery. However, that being said, I would recommend this game as a good story that stumbles a little bit at the end, but it keeps you entertained at least through for one playthrough. I look forward to seeing what this developer comes up with next, and plan to go and take a look at The Observer when it comes on sale. Unfortunately, it's left Game Pass recently. The medium is available for Xbox Series X, Series S and PC on Xbox Game Pass and Steam. Please check out my link for the first 30 minutes of gameplay. Also, check out the link below to get 3 months of Game Pass Ultimate for £1 in the UK and $1 in the US. All Xbox first-party releases are available on day one of release, and there are 100 games available including EA Play's catalogue. It's well worth trying out for a few months for that price.